I'm going to fast forward from the late 1980s to a period much closer to the present moment, to 2006. Again, here what I would recommend is particularly for people who are interested in civil society and the growth of civil society, the period in Thailand between the end of the dictatorship in 1988 up until 1977, which is when a relatively progressive constitution was promulgated. If we look at all 17, or now actually all 18, the 1997 Constitution is the most progressive, the one which provides citizens with the greatest number of opportunities to participate in politics. It's a fascinating period and actually an understudied period. So I would urge those of you interested in those kinds of questions to think about that period. But we're going to talk about 2006, the 19 September 2006 coup, lèse-majesty, and what I would call the resurgent surveillance state. Many of you have probably heard of the name Thaksin. Thaksin was a telecommunications tycoon and someone who dabbled in politics throughout the 1990s. And he was elected to become prime minister in 2001. His period as prime minister was very popular among what remains up until today a majority of citizens. The main reason is really twofold. Part of it is material. He pushed through programs which dramatically changed the lives of many, many Thai people, primarily in terms of creating universal health coverage, which is called the 30 baht healthcare plan, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's that you can pay 30 baht and whatever medical service you need will be provided. 30 baht is approximately $1 Australian. It also included decentralization of grant making to individual villages. He also tried to push through similar kinds of policies which both created social benefits for citizens, but also did much more. And this is where we get to the less material aspect of his popularity. Until Thaksin, although there were a range of different kinds of leaders of the country, from dictators to elected prime ministers, during the 73 to 76 period, there were a series of civilian prime ministers, including a university rector, and then two career diplomats. But nobody until Thaksin actually took poor, working, and marginalized people seriously as citizens of the nation, as people who could participate in politics. And Thaksin did so. He was a complicated, and I would still argue, despite this, which was a good move on his part, a very problematic leader. One of the ways in which he wasn't different from anybody else is that he presided over a horrendous human rights record. During the Thaksin period, there were 2 massacres in southern Thailand of ethnically Malay Muslims, including one, the Takbai massacre, which took place on October 25th, 2004, in which 86 people were killed following an arrest of approximately 1,500 people. And they were killed because when they were arrested, they were to be transported to a military base 6 hours away, but there weren't proper vehicles prepared for them. And so the people were stacked, one on top of another, 4 to 5 rows in each truck. And all of those on the bottom died from crush injuries and suffocation. There's a string of community rights and environmental activists who were killed during the Thaksin period. Not by Thaksin directly, of course, but his government engendered the possibility of collusion between business and law enforcement. There's also the high-profile disappearance of an important human rights lawyer, Somchai Nilapaichit, on the 12th of March 2004. And up until the present, there's been no justice in Somchai's case. But Thaksin's government made many people uncomfortable, at least not largely because of his a horrendous human rights record, but because there were those among various elites, those in military, some military elites, some capitalist elites, some royalist elites, who believed that he was trying to consolidate too much power in his hands. And so in late 2005, they began an extra-legal attempt to oust him. And the primary form of this is that there were street protests by a group that called itself the People's Alliance for Democracy, who began to call for both monarchical and military intervention to remove Thaksin from office. This is the group of people who wore yellow-colored shirts as a way of showing their own loyalty to the monarchy, and called for Thaksin to be ousted in order to protect the institution of the monarchy. They succeeded, and on the 19th of September 2006, a military coup ousted Thaksin. Since then, over the preceding 8 years, Thai politics has been constituted by contention, violence, and polarization, which continues to grow up until the very present moment. What I'd like to highlight is that particularly concerning, and this is where we really get to talking about the brackets around monarchy in the first slide of this presentation, is that there's been a resurgent and virulent use of the law criminalizing the alleged crime of lèse-majesty to silence dissident voices and create a culture of fear in Thailand. So the 2007 Constitution of Thailand and all 17 versions since 1932 have contained the clause of, quote, "The king shall be enthroned in a position of revered worship and shall not be violated. No person shall expose the king to any sort of accusation or action," unquote. This is then elaborated in Article 112 of the Thai Criminal Code, which states that, quote, "Whoever defames, insults, or threatens the king, queen, the heir apparent, or the regent shall be punished with imprisonment of 3 to 15 years. Historian David Streckfus identified the use of Article 112 and a related act, the 2007 Computer Crimes Act, which basically creates harsh penalties for any lèse-majesty that is carried out using means of electronic communication, whether it's a computer or a cell phone, an iPad, whatever, since the coup is epidemic, and noted that there have been court actions on 765 cases between 2006 and 2009. That's an average of almost 191 per year, which is an increase over the previous decade when there was an average of just 5 new cases per year. There's very scanty evidence for the years since then, and the very fact that this information is not publicly available is an indication of the sensitiveness of the monarchy in Thai public life.